Well, we all stumble upon this from time to time, but if you live by your feelings, not only will you be on a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down, but you'll be going with the circumstances of life, which are very sporadic. There is no consistency, right, to circumstances. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and you never know what kind of day you're gonna have, right? So living by the feelings it's a system that's a broken one. It has holes all over it, right? So culture emphasizes on feelings a lot, doesn't it? You hear that a lot. Well, you made me feel this way. But in the Bible, the way God tells us to function is to operate above feelings or beyond feelings. It says things like crucify the flesh, pick up your cross and follow me. Deny yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. That's talking about feelings, right? It's talking about the way that seems right to you, and it's talking about like choosing Him over yourself. So in this video, I wanted to get into how life throws you a series of problems and tests and trials, and if you don't know how to appropriate each one through a mindset funnel, because your mindset is so essential. I've come to realize how essential it really is. If you don't have a step work in your mindset to funnel things through, like problems, then how would you be able to catch and release? How would you be able to solve, right, and dismiss the feelings that come with the problem? How would you be able to just trump on, keep marching on through the midst of all the warfare that comes at you? Furthermore, this is the dangerous part, how would you, if you don't have a mindset, if you don't have a system, if you don't have a plan? It's like not boarding up windows knowing a hurricane is coming. It's like not doing anything. The Bible refers to this as building the house on rock and not on sand. When you build it on rock, you're a doer of the word. When you build it on sand, it means that you're busy with the things of God. Perhaps you're a listener of videos like this, a listener of sermons. But if you don't do it, then you're like this is how the Bible puts it. You're a person that as soon as something hard comes your way, you don't really understand what to do with it. So as it relates to your personal life and how you deal with stuff, that person folds under pressure. They buckle, right? So it has been said that you can measure a man or a woman by how they handle things under pressure, or how they act or react to pressure. To that degree, that's their maturity in the faith. That's the measuring rod there. How much can you carry without complaining? How much can you go forward without, needing encouragement or all these pep talks and all this stuff that people give one to another? This is a good measuring rod, because as you grow in the faith, you start to adapt and conquer, because God made us more than conquerors. But really, if you don't have a conquering mindset, how could you ever become a person that conquers in real life? What I've come to realize is that God is always close and near, but you don't always feel Him or see Him. He's always there. But the faith of the man is tested when they're going through hard times and they don't sense God. Where are you, God? Right? And I've gotten to the point where I believe that the test is to see what's in your heart. Are you with God for His stuff? Are you with God for what He can do for you? Like, hey, God, I want to be rich. Hey, God, I want to be this. Those types of people don't make it far, because as it relates to life itself throws at you a whole lot. And if God is always going to be the culprit, as to how your life is doing, you're going to always be indifferent towards God. Because life is going to happen. We live in a fallen world. The Bible says, in this world you're going to suffer, but take heart, I have overcome the world. But he didn't say you might suffer, he said you're going to suffer. And I just think that, especially here in America, the doctrine that most pastors preach is a feel-good doctrine. That God just wants to comfort you and put you on a cozy bed with a lot of like cotton, just nice and cozy, and feed you grapes or something like that. I don't know about you. I don't know what your Christian life is like. I can talk about mine. I go through a lot. I do. Financially, I go through a lot. Spiritually, there's a lot of different types of warfares that I face off with, right? Sometimes I get chastised by God, right? I'm just in a season right now of chastisement. And the chastisement that I'm under right now has to do with putting ministry before God. God was correcting me on that. Because even though we know the difference between ministry and God, we don't live like there's a big difference. You can know better and not do better. And so I was praying for the sick. I was healing, delivering, setting the captives free, feeding the poor. All very good things, wasn't it? Evangelizing daily, right? Having Bible studies, all that good stuff. And I got corrected by God because my house was in disorder behind the scenes. And our first ministry is our home. Wife and children and home. That's the first ministry. And I was in disorder, but yet I was taking care of the world. And then also, on top of that, I was relating ministry to me like being very tight and close to God. Well, I'm doing all of this. He's anointed me. Look at people getting set free. I can feel his presence, etc. And in a roundabout way, I graded myself an A+ because of all those things. Because surely he's using me. I'm tight with him. But like I said, I'm being chastised right now, meaning I'm being corrected. Because ministry is essential, and everybody would agree that's how we get the word out, but it's not on the column of order. It's not more important than family, and it's definitely not more important than your personal devotion to God. Although I did have that, he wanted me to rearrange the way that I went about life, right? Instead of get up and think about evangelizing and doing things for God, it was more so like spend time with God. And I always kind of spoke about myself as an action man. Well, tell me what to do, I'll do it. You know, like a mission-oriented type of individual. And so it's like, just sit there and be still and listen for my voice wasn't something I was really good at or practicing. But that's what he calls us to when in relationship. That's how we hear him, that's how we connect, and that's how we bear fruit through that connection to the vine. And that wasn't happening in my life, but what was happening was I was very mission oriented, right? Looking for the lost, ministering and all that. Again, all that's good, but it's not what he's looking for as it pertains to what he paid for through Jesus Christ on the cross. He paid for a relationship between you and him. He didn't pay for an employee. He didn't pay, right, for a person that just punches in and punches out kind of thing, does work for him. He paid for a son or a daughter if you're a woman, right? And that looks like you just in your heart, where it matters most, separating yourself for God. But again, I felt like I was doing that, but the thing was with me, there was all kinds of disorder, and God just called me to align myself in the right order. And then out of the alignment, everything flows a lot better. So I've been in the season of getting my house in order and, you know, just getting my family in order. It happens to everybody. Some people are right in one area, but they're wrong in another area. And so everybody needs to be corrected in one way, form, or shape, or another. Because nobody, the Bible says this, nobody is justified by the works of the law, because nobody measures up. And everybody needs work. Nobody's righteous in the sight of God, is what I'm trying to say. Nobody's righteous in the sight of God. Nobody. Not a single soul out there. I don't care who who they are. And they got work to do in the sight of God. So that's why it's good that we're under grace. And it's good that we enter in through Jesus' works and not our own. But if you fall under the headline of what I was falling into, right? Take this video for yourself, because you know, you don't want to be told, well, I did this for you, God, I did that for you, and then I never knew you. You don't want to be told that. So just heed to the convictions that God puts on your heart. In conclusion to this video, in terms of life, it's going to throw you through a whirlwind of different conflict and problems. It just is that way for everybody, not just you, for everybody. And if you don't have a system to funnel things through, a step work, biblical framework to look at things and say, okay, this is how I'm going to act or react to this situation. If you don't have a predetermined set list for how to govern your own feelings or your life, discipline, self-control, like responsibilities, order, right? That's where power comes from, right? If you don't have that very basic, those basic things, then you'll be like a person that's a bag in the wind. Today, the wind blows this way, and it'll blow that way. But God has called us to be firm and rooted and strong, to where influences or peer pressure or pressures or storms come and the wind blows this way, but we stay firm in Jesus Christ. So what that looks like is to have our faith grounded in Him, knowing that even though we're feeling the effects of warfare or negative just energy coming our way, whether it be people, places, or things, whatever we may be going through, we can still keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, which that is the main point here. Keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus. Although it sounds easy, you know, I relate you to I point out the story of Peter when he was walking on water. He had his eyes on Jesus. As long as that was the case, he stood on water. But as soon as he looked at the storm, he sank. And that's how it really is in real life. If you look at the storm, if you look at the circumstances, you're going to feel like you're drowning in all of that. Right? But if you keep it on Jesus, He keeps you above water. And then that's what it's like to be more than a conqueror. See, God is not in a rush to get you out of a problem. He wants you to overcome the problem in the midst of the problem. He wants you to have faith. He wants you to work it out mentally and in your heart. He wants you to become stronger, bigger, and better than what you currently are, so that your words and your mind and your heart shifts and changes from wanting to duck and cover and always be comfortable, because that's the main problem. Most people want to be comfortable, and when their comfortability is poked at, and when it's messed with, they get irritated because they made the goal of their life to be comfortable. I would have you to know that that's not the goal of the gospel. It's quite the opposite, actually. Apostle Paul says, I know what it's like to abound, and I know what it's like to lack. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So that's to say that God put him through a whole system, a series of different things, tests, trials, tribulations, that poked at his heart to see, okay, if I put you in this situation, how would you react? Okay, if I put you in this situation, are you going to trust me? You know, and then God works on us to look more like Jesus Christ in every situation. So take it for what it's worth. God is with you. He'll never leave you nor forsake you. Your job is to trust God and to have faith, to study and show yourself approved, to not allow the circumstances of this world to sway you more than the faith that you have in God, to not catch attitude or be offended by God. This is a choice and a decision on your part. To not be offended by what you're going through. And lastly, to walk by faith and not by sight. As you do these things, you'll find that you can keep your joy, you can keep your peace, you can walk on water, you can do the supernatural, you can be aligned with God, and things can still be wrong on the outside. You know, Joseph didn't wait to be happy. He was happy in the prison cell. He was happy because his refuge was God the whole time. And when you make God your refuge, your dwelling place, it doesn't matter where they place you or what they do with you. God is your dwelling place. And in God, there's a fullness of joy and the fullness of peace and all that. So what do you have to do and what do I have to do? Well, we got to practice the secret place. And we got to practice connection to God and speaking in tongues and prayer and worship and reading our Bibles. And through that, we will create the environment to dwell in that has to do with the presence of God and listening to his voice and walking in the supernatural grace and glory of God, to then you affect the outer world with what's going on in the inner world through your practice of devotion to him. Failure to do that, you're being swayed by the circumstances of the world. And then you'll be polluted and contaminated, because once those effects take root, bitterness and resentment and all that stuff, offense, starts to speak out in the direction of God. And then now it's operating against you because you allowed something that was outside to come in when your inside was supposed to influence the outside. God bless you guys.